targeted at Blem. And then the Draven banned away from Fabi. Blem talking about previously how he could totally whoop Fabi, so he looks like he wants to whoop him by banning the Draven. Similarly, we see Blem's Lee Sin banned away, and then an immediate Thresh ban as well. Thresh, of course, is just a strong general ban, and Rek'Sai banned away as well. Rek'Sai, in general, a strong champion. Nightblue's team looks like they have a pretty strong strategy coming into this. Immediately picked Jarvan. Jarvan, generally known as a very consistent, very pretty powerful jungler right now, can gank at early levels and has a pretty solid clear, as well as keeping pretty consistent power throughout the game. You can build him with a little bit more AD or a little bit more tanky depending on what your team needs. We see Janna being hovered over on the opposite side. No surprises if this Janna is picked up. It does make a lot of sense, you know. Probably the most powerful support available currently, and of course with that Thresh banned out, really no reason to pick up a Morgana. Zerbic hovering over that Graves, a champion he's very comfortable with, does lock it in, kind of preemptively counterpicking the Corki matchup. For those of you who don't know, Graves is generally referred to as a counterpick to Corki. So by picking Graves earlier, functionally denying the enemy team Corki, although Fabi seems unconcerned and wants that matchup. He is eager to prove himself after talking smack with Blem in the pregame lobby. Golden Glue does pick up that Riven, most likely for Moonway. Moonway, known for playing Riven pretty proficiently, did play amazingly well last game as Aurelia, consistently catching out Trick2G and winning a couple of those 1v1 duel situations where Trick2G is normally known to shine. So excellent play from Moonway in the previous game, and we can assume that that Riven will be picked up for him, although in these games you can never be 100% sure. It could be a Riven mid for Golden Glue. Blem going to pick up that Jax for the top lane. Blem does have TP as a summoner spell at this point, so Blem himself could look to grab it. KT Smurf looks like might be playing support. It'll be interesting to see where each of these players go. It's not 100% clear with QtPie's team. It never really is. QtPie tends to pick players who play a lot of similar roles. We have a lot of junglers on his team at any given moment, and Smoothie is their sub, so not entirely sure where he is going to go. Not a player that I have heard of, but he is a challenger level player, so we'll do pretty well. Garen picked up here. Garen known as kind of the solo queue counter to Riven, so it'll be interesting to see if whoever is going to end up with this Garen pick can play it proficiently enough to deny Riven that early game that she loves to play aggressive in. And of course, Vi picked up as well. Looks like QtPie is going to be the jungler. This game has opted to take Smite, so QtPie on that Vi jungle. Vi does a lot of similar things that Jarvan does have that forced engage, is pretty much, you know, is unstoppable for all intents and purposes, unless Ade, who played Morgana last game, picks up Morgana once again. Ade showing last game with those spell shields just how powerful this Morgana pick can be, using those shields to keep Moonway on Aurelia and, of course, Nightblue on Wukong immune to CC and blocking a lot of the damages from Strompus Vigar in the previous game. Orianna locked in, kind of just a general safe defensive pick. No surprises there. If you're not sure what you're going to lane against, Orianna is a very excellent choice because she's always going to be able to farm reasonably safely, has pretty solid range, and doesn't necessarily have the strongest laning phase against a lot of champions, but isn't too weak either. Surprisingly, the Azir has gotten through. Golden Glue not opting to pick up Azir again against this team, even though there's a Garen whose pretty much only engage option is to run at you. So interesting that they didn't pick that up. Maybe they're afraid of some of the counter matchups, but it is going to come out for someone on that team, and I'm guessing that this Azir pick is most likely going to go to KT Smurf. So it turns out that KT Smurf is going to be their mid laner this game. Smoothie will be their support player on that Janna. Zerbic, their AD carry, as always. I'm a QtPie, mixing it up and taking it to the jungle, and Blem on that top lane, Garen versus Moonway. Moonway, someone we know is an accomplished top laner, plays incredibly well, has opted to take teleport, whereas Blem on the other side wants to play much more aggressive and get that ignite for the early game advantage, and potentially, if he can get ahead in that lane, keep himself ahead. So both team comps here looking incredibly strong, both looking very team fight oriented, not a whole ton of split pushing like we saw last game is what I'm going to guess. So very excited to see these games, very excited to see how this works out. And once again, guys, if you have some free time, and you probably do because we're going to have a bit of a delay here before we jump into this game, head on over to OMEN.gg. Big shout out to our sponsors, HP and Intel, for helping us put that website together. You can vote for how these guys are going to draft this week, and of course they're going to draft immediately after the third game, so not this game, but the next one. After that, they will draft, and they will get to pick their favorite players. So, you know, vote for your favorite solo queue all-star. Vote for QtPie, Nightblue, Voyboy, or Trick2G, depending on what you want to do. But we will be back in about 3 minutes here, guys. Thank you for bearing with us. There's been a lot of delays tonight, and thanks for watching. Back to game 2 of week 3 of day 2 of the OMEN Encounter. I am your host and solo caster for the evening, Sifa. Welcome back. For those of you who missed Champion Select, this is going to be Nightblue team versus Pie's squad coming in here. And once again, we do see some early aggression. They do, however, spot each other out. So on both sides, we got Nightblue on that J4 pick. We have Golden Glue on Orianna, Fabi on Corki, Ade on Morgana, and Moonway on Riven this game. KT Smurf on the opposite side, taking away Golden Glue's year. Zerbic on that Graves pick he loves so much. Pie mixing it up and taking it to the jungle. Blem, God of Lee Sin and Annie, trying out Garen this game. And Smoothie, the unknown substitute, coming in to support as Janna. So, excited to see both these teams in action. We did see Nightblue's team with a decisive victory last game, ignoring Trick2G's split pushing efforts and forcing down the mid lane. So, you know, they might be coming in a pretty good attitude off that last win, and maybe they can carry it over to take this game. Maybe not. You know, might be tough to beat Pie's squad. We haven't seen Pie's jungle before in this tournament, so I'm not quite sure what to expect. Blem, on the other hand, obviously a very competent player, but does he know the Garen versus Riven matchup very well? You know, not very likely, not one you see too much in solo queue, but of course Moonway, a very proficient Riven player, so really curious to see how that lane pans out. We do see on the Pie side of the map that they are going to get that leash for Vi immediately, and then meanwhile on the opposite side we do see Nightblue starting with that Gromp instead on the top side. So with this clear path, it means that most likely Nightblue will end up on either the mid lane or the bot lane for his first gank, depending on when he wants to gank, whereas Pie will end up on the top side or mid side of the map, just because after clearing these initial camps, he is going to be in that top side jungle. So, curious to see exactly how this worked out. We're going to see early pressure. Excellent bind from Ade. Fabi coming in with that auto attack harass and that phosphorus bomb. This is kind of what we come to expect from Ade as a player. Played phenomenally last game. Really good black shields overall. Very proficient player. You know, Morgana not known for being as strong as Janna in the support role, but when you land every single one of your bindings, she does pretty well for herself. We do see both players clearing through as expected. Imaqtpie is headed up into that top jungle, going to try to clear out his red buff. Smite almost available. We'll be able to clear it pretty healthy. Nightblue opting to back instead of going for that second buff. A much more standard rotation at this point for junglers. Blem using that, you know, aggressive early game strength from Garen and that free tanky stats. And of course that summoner spell advantage he has in the form of Ignite to zone Moonway off. Be curious to see exactly how trading works out in this lane. Blem being pretty careful not to use his silence too aggressively, knowing that it's much better to use it after Riven has burned the initial stack on her Q. So Moonway does, however, have a small EXP advantage, but once again, that lane is going to be mostly even. And despite being zoned off a little bit there, Moonway is going to be able to farm relatively safely. Pie is, however, waiting in the bushes. It'll be interesting to see if this one works out. Moonway has opted to go into the wave. Might try to continue this trade, which would be a poor choice given Pie's presence there. Red buff procced on Moonway. Moonway will have to flash if he wants to get out of this one. Does opt to do it. Blem flashing in, using that Ignite to great effect, however. Oh, and of course, Blem almost going down, but does turn after that Valor is used from Riven to get that first blood kill. So excellent aggressive play, using that Ignite to the fullest. You know, it may not give you quite the map advantage that Teleport does as the top laner, but that early game damage is going to come in so huge for them as a team. Moonway immediately teleporting back up top, not wanting to miss any of that farm there. Pie ahead of him now in levels because of that successful gank, and of course being able to push out that wave didn't hurt either. You immediately see Blem picking up 2 longswords. You know, doesn't look to build tanky quite yet, does want to rush that brutalizer, get a little bit of cooldown reduction and a little bit more damage, help him win those trades even more in the laning phase. Nightblue has opted to get that the chilling smite upgrade, so he will be able to do a little bit more true damage and a little bit more slow, or give himself that 50% slow for 2 seconds, and that came in kind of huge for his Wukong pick last game, and I imagine we'll see the same amount of effectiveness on this J4 as well. Zerbic, despite being pushed constantly out of lane, not too far behind in farm, and you know, they aren't exactly winning these trades, but they aren't losing either. My big concern at this point is that Smoothie has not been able to proc his Spellthief's Edge stacks, and so is going to be behind in gold, and you know, delaying that Sightstone can be huge, or delaying those upgrades, because early game vision is going to be so important for both these teams when they're looking to team fight. Obviously, Orianna and J4 both have a very strong, very aggressive team fight, and you want to force those engages whenever possible. And of course, Nightblue himself here in the spot lane, committing all 3 members. We saw SK Telecom do this. We saw Bangi on Jarvan commit to this early game gank, and if Ade can land that bind, Nightblue's going to be able to follow up, and they may not even be able to get a flash off because there's going to be so much burst damage down in this bot lane. They do immediately throw down that vision. Good on Smoothie to follow up the tornado with a ward, knowing that no one could respond while they were knocked up. So very cautious, very smart play. Nightblue does have to burn that buff from clearing the Raptors to kill that ward, but overall, good job denying the gank, and good read from Zerbic and Smoothie to know that that one was coming. Meanwhile, Blem in the top lane is still getting pushed out. Doesn't quite have the same wave clear options that Riven does without using his judgment. Or, sorry, his spin. For the life of me, I can't remember what it's called. Judgment, I was right. All right. Learning as we go, folks. Learning as we go. Bear with me on this solo cast. So, Moonway spamming a little bit in all chat. Not too happy with exactly how his lane is going, but overall, I think it's working pretty well for him. Those trades aren't going to quite go in his favor as long as Blem's able to silence to stop any follow-up. Blem, of course, just able to use that judgment to do so much damage and push the wave back at the same time, but you know, depending on who gets more cooldown reduction this early laning phase, it could play a huge difference. Fabi going aggressive on Smoothie there. Smoothie immediately using the Tornado to try and disengage, and Zerbic following up with the buckshot and, of course, the dash there to stay safe. KT Smurf is going super low in the mid lane. Does not have to burn heal, but does have to burn flash to avoid that gank from Nightblue. And Golden Glue at this point looks to get himself ahead a little bit in the mid lane, at least 5 CS. May be able to get more, but QtPie is here to make sure that Golden Glue can't play too aggressive. QtPie going to clear the Raptors. Meanwhile, Blem in the top lane, level 6 now. This is where Moonway has to play really, really careful, because at any point, Garen can, you know, all in under this turret and potentially ult to kill her. And despite the fact that Valor is a strong ability and will give you that shield in a lot of situations, you know, for all intents and purposes, your health is still incredibly low. And so Garen's ult is still going to do an immense amount of damage. And in fact, will still do the same amount it would do if you didn't have the shield present. So the shield is kind of a non-factor when you're low enough, because Garen ult's going to kill you when you hit that, you know, that 10% health mark, no matter how big that shield is. Both sides on bot have yet to back, so no clear advantage yet for either side. Imaqtpie once again trying to create a lot of pressure in this bot wave. That bush is not warded, but Moonway is already playing very cautious, not quite wanting to fight this level 6 engage. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, we do see Azir has picked up that Fiendish Codex. Will most likely mushroom Nomicon just because it's such a good item for Azir, and because Azir doesn't necessarily need the same amount of mana regen as a lot of other mid laners like Orianna, who you know, Golden Glue has opted to go for that Chalice. So no surprises. Both these builds are very standard. Graves has finally gotten to back. Zerbic picking up that BF sword for himself will give himself a little bit of a damage advantage, but it'll be curious to see exactly what Fabi picks up after he pushes out this lane and backs himself. I'm guessing he'll start picking up the pieces to Triforce, which, you know, within itself we see consistently in the bot lane, that battle between BF sword and Sheen, and in small situations it's very good. Blem immediately running away here. Will probably be able to get out pretty safe, does have that movement speed buff, but it looks like he's much more interested in trying to get a kill. Blem kind of panicking. I'll use the ult on Moonway and not getting anything for it. Maybe a misclick there, but good execution from Nightblue, flashing out, denying Garen that ult, and then of course excellent follow-up from Moonway as well. So Blem, maybe not the best decision making, does kind of squander the lead he got in the early game there, but is able to pick up that Brutalizer and is able to get those boots, so he may be able to still trade with Riven in this lane. We have not seen what Moonway has opted to pick up, but I'm guessing a similar build will come out from him. Corki, of course, getting the pieces to Phage and that Sheen, as we mentioned earlier. So Zerbic will have a little bit of an advantage when it comes to burst damage, just because of how Graves plays and because he does have that BF sword. But Corki, of course, is going to be able to trade pretty efficiently when weaving spells with those auto attacks to get the most amount of damage from those Sheen procs. And once again, the sniper binding from Ote, just reminding everyone that he's a top-tier Morgana player. You know, clearly this is a champion he's very comfortable on and uses the bindings in unpredictable ways and catches a lot of people off guard. So Golden Glue trying to trade with KT Smurf here. Not quite working out so well for him. Does opt to use the ult there. Goes full aggressive, but unfortunately for him, QtPie is here. He is pushed back. QtPie will go forward. Does flash. Uses the ultimate there. Procs the red buff. KT Smurf there to follow up. Golden Glue looks like he's going to get taken out right now. So over-aggressive play from Golden Glue for sure. You know, going full in on that Azir, maybe not the best choice, especially when Azir has heal and has that movement speed buff, and your CC options are limited. But of course, without QtPie there, the follow-up would have been limited. J4 moving into the jungle, knowing that both players are at low health to try to clear out some of this vision. KT Smurf kind of trying to respond, but knows that he won't be able to catch out Nightblue in the jungle, so ends up going back to farm. Ade does have to burn his ultimate down there in the bot lane, but doesn't really get too much for it at this point. So overall, Both lanes are probably much even in CS, 79 to 81 in the mid lane, 80 to 87 in the bot lane, and of course 68 to 46 in the bot lane, or in the top lane rather. Not quite going in favor of Blem. Of course, Riven always going to be better at pushing out those lanes and has a much more reliable way to CS with those empowered auto attacks, whereas Garen is pretty limited to judgment for wave clear and doesn't have an immense amount of AD there. Doesn't have the silence there to stop the TP, so will not be able to stop this dragon attempt from happening, and did burn Judgment to harass Moonway there, so won't be able to use that to clear the wave either. So a little bit of poor decision making coming out here from Blem. Clear that he's not as comfortable on Garen. Didn't really see that TP coming, but will be able to push out this wave and perhaps get an XP advantage in this lane at least. That 6% AD and AP going to be huge here for the whole team at this point. You can see Nightblue immediately going for that Warrior enchantment, which means he's going to benefit from it as well. Orianna, of course, will always benefit from it, but is once again going to get caught out by Cutie-Pie, you know? Good identification from Cutie-Pie to see this camp coming. Golden Glue is going to try to run away, but it's highly unlikely he'll get out at this point, and of course Cutie-Pie does smack him that one last time to pick up the kill. So until Golden Glue's flash up, he needs to play a little bit more careful, because you can see that Cutie-Pie knows that weakness in that mid lane and is exploiting it over and over again. So Cutie-Pie wasn't sure exactly how he was going to play as a jungler in this game. You know, he switches roles pretty frequently in this tournament, and seems to be doing very well. 1-0 and 2 has gotten that Azir ahead in the mid lane, and Azir, of course, now has finished the Morellonomicon, which is going to be especially useful throughout the course of this game. You know, that cooldown reduction giving him both attack speed, CDR, and then, of course, AP from the Morellonomicon. So pretty huge item buy for Azir and a pretty substantial power spike at this point in the game. But once again, both supports have gotten their Sightstones. We do see solid ward control from Nightblue's side around the Dragon Pit area. You know, a lot of that was to secure the Dragon, but a lot of that will remain. You see those deep jungle wards and can come in handy here. So Moonway playing kind of cautious. Cutie-Pie does have his ultimate available, but has to be pretty careful. Does ult Nightblue. Blem unfortunately miscalculating his damage, not able to do too much there, and Garen trying to let out I will not falter, but does definitely falter when he gets flag and dragged by Nightblue. So overall, excellent play from them. You can see Blem not experienced on Garen. You know, I talked about this pretty much repeatedly since the start of the game, and you can see that he doesn't quite have it figured out exactly how much damage that ultimate's going to do, but you can be sure that after that fight that he will most likely adapt, and we can expect smarter trades from them in the future. But overall, really good use of Nightblue's full rotation, getting out as much burst damage as possible, and then, you know, locking them both in the same place so Riven can make full advantage of the AoE damage that she can put out. Good rotation from the team and good play overall. Cutie-Pie's side going to be a little bit pressed to force something at this point, but, you know, you still have a pretty solid lead for Azir in the mid lane, 1-0 and 1, and he does have about a 14 CS lead at this point, well, closer to 10. And, of course, in the bot lane, Zerbic getting farther and farther ahead. Fabi does love this Corki pick, but it doesn't look like it works out for him quite so well. You know, we saw him fall behind in that bot lane as Draven earlier, too, so maybe Zerbic just a little bit more confident in CSing, and maybe Zerbic just a little bit more comfortable in these bot lane exchanges, because despite the fact that I think that Ate has been landing all these bindings, not a lot has been able to come from them, and of course Graves has got that substantial CS advantage. Ate landing that bind on KT Smurf, doesn't get that ultimate on him either, so neither player getting too much out of that, although Azir has burned his ultimate. The tower will go down for Cutie-Pie's side. Good job on Blem for getting that, realizing that Riven had backed and taking that tower, but at the same time, you know, it's just a one-for-one trade at this point in the team. So Nightblue coming into the mid lane along with Ate. Fabi alone in the bot lane has to be careful here. Imaqtpie does not have ult yet, but can get the hit out. Fabi immediately flashing out, not wanting to deal with Graves in any way, shape, or form, and of course, if he was locked down for any substantial period of time there, Cutie-Pie's ult may have come back up, but of course, still a few seconds left on it yet. Cutie-Pie still hovering around the bot lane, knowing that that's flash down. And this is one of Cutie-Pie's big strengths as a jungler, is that he sees those cooldowns down, he doesn't worry about it. Zerbic flashing out of that Nightblue ult, immediately blows all cooldowns that he can. Fabi going to take out Imaqtpie with the help of that Sheen. This is where Zerbic has to be careful. He doesn't have any more spells, and Corki still has a substantial amount of mana. Zerbic kind of backing off, using that creep wave to shield him from any potential Corki harass. So overall, one-for-one trade, jungler for jungler. Unfortunately, in this case, Graves did not get the kill, whereas Fabi did. So a little bit more gold to Nightblue in the jungle, but also a little bit less gold in their bot lane. Sorry, a little bit more gold to Cutie-Pie in the jungle and a little bit less gold to Zerbic in the bot lane. Zerbic at this point looking like he is going to go back and be able to finish that Infinity Edge, which will be a pretty substantial spike for him, but Fabi also picking up that kill means that he is going to be able to get most likely finish Triforce. So pretty even across the board, despite the fact that Graves has more burst damage. The sustained fights will probably err on the side of Fabi. The Triforce, of course, just giving him so much in utility and, of course, so much damage with that Sheen proc. You can see the full advantage Moonway has accrued in the top lane, level 11 to Garen's level 9. So despite the fact that that is considered a counter matchup, he has found a way to get ahead, and Riven still really known for dueling well in these situations. Ade using that Black Shield as best as he can, but not getting a whole lot out of it simply because there's no magic damage or CC there to stop. So maybe protects the Janna Zephyr, but not much past that. And KT Smurf getting caught out there a little bit sloppy on the use of that ult. Nightblue not wanting to go in any deeper than that. Does not have Cataclysm available. Does, however, have that Chilling Smite if they do try to re-engage it. You can see Blem now heading towards the mid lane, but unfortunately Moonway is already there. May catch each other out. They are committing 3 people to this mid lane to try to get this tower. Will they be able to get it? A little skeptical, you know. There's not really enough minions there to create that pressure, but they do get a lot of damage, and they are moving down to the bottom side of the map. This dragon does have 30 seconds left till it spawns, so overall, good movement from the team, and we'll see if they can use this time to get Dragon vision control, which it looks like they will. Never mind, they want to go for this mid lane turret. Makes a lot of sense. They did force a lot of people back, too many low health members, and a lot of people backed off from that mid lane trying to secure Dragon vision similarly and not try to give up too much, but at the same time, no one there to clear those waves means bad news. Moonwade running in, trying to get the assist, not quite fast enough. Flag and drag plus the ball from Oriana is a pretty easy kill. Blem, not sure if he wants to go in there. Does cancel the judgment to run off. The team as a whole moving down to Dragon, and this could be one of those big team fights we're talking about. Like, Fabi has no mana, and that's one thing to keep in mind here. He will not be able to do a ton of damage. Maybe should have backed before this engage, because Zerbic has all of his mana, but of course Zerbic without an ultimate and Azir with an ultimate. A little bit of an awkward fight for the team. Blem is going to run in here. May not be able to fight Moonway, but will be able to take out Nightblue from the looks of it smoothly, using that ult to disengage. KT Smurf going back in. Fabi's going down. Almost immediately to Zerbic here. Zerbic not needing that full amount of burst. And Blem, despite suffering a lot in lane, is playing incredibly well in this team fight. Ade has to burn the single man ult to stop him. Meanwhile, Golden Glue does get the double man ult. PewDiePie coming from behind to stop Golden Glue. Blem running at him with that red buff. They do have the Chilling Smite to slow him down. Blem coming in for that kill. Blem coming in huge in this team fight. Excellent play from Blem. Identifying targets, knowing that Nightblue is a little bit weak to the amount of damage, seeing Nightblue isn't tanky enough, and running in with his own tanky stats to kind of take him out of the fight immediately and then follow up with that Golden Glue kill. So, good play overall from PewDiePie's team. Excellent decision-making from PewDiePie himself, and surprisingly from Blem. So despite having an early disadvantage, Blem came, once again, just did so well in that team fight. And Zerbic catching out Fabi. Fabi without any mana can't really make any advantage of his Sheen, and Sheen is one of the huge parts of winning those sustained fights against Graves. So despite Graves not having his ultimate available, he could still use spells because he had mana, whereas, of course, Fabi did not. So good fight and good decision-making from PewDiePie's team to come in and win that engage, and a little bit rough for the side of Nightblue, and Golden Glue in that fight especially was put in a really tough spot where he couldn't do a whole lot. So Ade and Golden Glue playing exceptionally well, but just not quite the team fight for them. It'll be interesting to see how this game progresses and develops. Fabi has opted for the Sorcerer's Shoes over the Berserker's Greaves, so he may be looking to poke a bit more in these team fights. And you know, despite that fight going pretty south for him, he is at a solid position and has shored up a lot of the CS lead. It's only about a 10 lead against him. Graves, on the other hand, though, because of that excellent fighting, has finished his Greaves and his Zeal, so we'll be able to most likely win those duels, although I doubt we'll see it come to a 1v1 situation at this point. A little cocky from Fabi once again to pick Corki into this Graves, but overall, now that they're through laning phase, it shouldn't matter too much. Blem coming in hot after that play earlier today, not so scared of Moonway anymore, does have a bit more of a gold advantage, does have that Sunfire Cape, and still has red buff from that previous fight, so trading with Moonway a little bit easier now than it used to be, and a lot of that 40 CS, a lot of that gold advantage that Moonway has accrued from the 40 extra CS is disappearing quickly as Blem has, you know, started contributing to fights more and has been able to get out of this top lane. Riven, of course, immediately going all for Armor Pen, does not opt to get the Tiamat, knowing her wave clear is superior anyway. But Golden Glue has to play careful here, is silenced. They all back off. Blem not taking any damage in that exchange, although most members backing off instead of trying to fight anyway. At this point, Garen, maybe not the ideal pick for laning phase, but may do a lot more for the team fight. Does create a lot of pressure, does force a lot of peeling cooldowns if they want to keep him off. Moonway in the top lane, split pushing this out. Garen coming up to stop him. You know, one of the big things to look at here is that Jana is finished that Forbidden Idol and may look to go for... well, it's interesting. She can go for the opt for the Morella Nomicon, get a little bit more cooldown reduction, get a little bit more AP. She can opt for... more likely she will opt for Mikhail's Crucible and give them a decent option against CC, especially Garen's Silence, which is pretty huge here. But the rest of the CC on the team is pretty difficult to stop. Of course, Azir has that knock-up and he can push back with the wall, and Vi, of course, has a knock-up that can't really be stopped anyway. So really the only option at this point, if she does opt to go for that Mikhail's Crucible, is the Garen Silence. So curious to see if she'll do it. Does seem like a good option, does give them a healing option for these team fights. We'll be able to keep Graves healthy if she opts for that. But at the same time, you know, maybe not the best itemization. Meanwhile, Ate on the other side hasn't gotten that cooldown reduction, but has gotten those mobility boots. But then, of course, as I say that, so does Jana. Maybe just going to max out cooldown reduction here. Overall, a pretty solid strategy. Wants to be able to shield as much as these team fights. Wants to be able to throw out those tornadoes. And Ate a little bit far behind, despite having, you know, many more opportunities to proc the Spell Thief's Edge in lane. Also does not have any assists at this point. So great bindings, but without the team there to follow up, or without, you know, it binding in the appropriate situation, it doesn't really matter where you throw them. Zerbic turning his 10 CS lead into almost a 40 CS lead now. Interesting how the team has decided to funnel so much gold onto him and give him so much access to farm. I think at this point they're really hoping on this Azir and this Graves to do most of the teamfight damage. Garen will start to fall off as he fits into later levels. Moonway in trouble here. Imaqtpie coming in. Tries to go and does burn the ultimate there. Blem auto-attacking down, waiting, being patient. Does have the ultimate available, does throw it out. So you can see as this game has moved forward, Blem has identified more and more how the damages on this ultimate has intuitively figured out how much it's going to do and was very patient in that fight using it. Is going to use that Q to run away. May try to go back in, but it looks like the rest of the team is backing out, so they're just going to trade 1-for-1 here. They're going to trade Blem for Moonway. So top laner for top laner, not too huge. But meanwhile, Zerbic and KT Smurf, the main focus for farm on this team, and also just able to exert so much match pressure. Both of those champions doing so much damage, able to do so well here. Smoothie pushing away Nightblue as Nightblue tries to engage on QtPie, knowing that QtPie has none of his cooldowns available. Fabi in trouble here. Does have to flash out almost immediately. Kind of sloppy play from Fabi today. You know, we see a lot of flashes burn just to keep him alive, a lot of missed positions, and that turret will go down before that TP can even get there. So Moonway's TP canceled. Will have the full 5-minute cooldown at this point in the game. So that could be pretty disastrous, especially given that one of the big weaknesses of this Garen pick is that they didn't opt to run TP. Zerbic will get caught out here. Nightblue does not want to follow up, however. Zerbic just too far ahead. Meanwhile, the rest of the team immediately picking up that kill on KT Smurf. KT Smurf does get off a reasonable amount of damage before he dies, but not enough to sway this team fight. At this point in the game, you do see a 2k gold lead for the side of Imaqtpie's squad, and you know, a lot of armor pen coming up from this. We do see Vi with the Warrior Enchantment as well as a Brutalizer. We see a similar build coming in from Nightblue, so this might be the kind of the new standard. With so much armor pen, they are able to burst down a lot more. They are able to contribute a lot more to bursting down these squishier targets like KT Smurf, like Zerbic. You know, the Graves and the Azir pick, both naturally sort of squishy. But it's going to be hard because at this point in the game, Graves and Azir do so much damage, and Orianna really needs to land these multi-target ults for it to be effective. You can see her kind of getting the pieces towards Zhonya's Hourglass there, but doesn't have nearly the amount of items that KT Smurf does on this Azir pick. So maybe not the best decision to let this Azir through, but I think overall picking the safe lane from Orianna may have been the cautious choice. But cautious choices aren't exactly what has won this tournament so far. You know, most of the teams who win make aggressive decisions and follow through with them. So questionable to let Azir through, but overall, as KT Smurf playing it as expected, doing incredibly well, has a ton of farm, and does a lot of damage in these engages. Zerbic having to dash away there. Nightblue's team overall looking for control of this Dragon Pit. They do have the vision to take this pretty safely, but I don't think they know that the enemy team has a ward currently in the pit. So maybe waiting, hoping to get a pick so they can engage us 100%. They do drop that pink ward and clear out the enemy ward. So at this point, they're waiting, hoping to poke down. They want to utilize this Corki pick to the best effect before fighting a team fight, because they know if they get engaged on in the pick, they will be in trouble. Oh my god. So the Golden Glue instantly comes out with that Orianna combo. Orianna and Nightblue working together to take it out. QtPie goes in the back to take out Fabi. Fabi immediately valks out. QtPie getting taken down by Golden Glue. So despite Golden Glue being behind, he uses his damage on as many people as possible with that with his ultimate there, and Blem running in, not too scared, but very vulnerable to Fabi's magic damage at this point, not having much MR at all. So Zerbic will get that dragon and pick it up for his team, but they lose a lot of members in the process. Overall, though, still a 2-for-3 trade in the favor of Imaqtpie's squad. So maybe not the best positioning to let Nightblue and Golden Glue wombo combo like that, but at the same time, because Golden Glue doesn't have the damage to kill people in one shot, it didn't have quite the impact that they needed to. Smoothie getting out with just a sliver of health. Zerbic so far ahead that he was pretty much able to solo that dragon, so once again, this gold is now going to be more in favor of Pie's squad. 3k gold lead for them. This lineup looking stronger than anyone they've fielded so far, and Zerbic kind of playing out of his mind here. 4-0 and 5, just a master of this Graves pick. Really impressed so far. Opposite side, Orianna has managed to finish that Zhonya's Hourglass. Golden Glue going to be happy with that one. We'll give him a lot more defensive options in these fights. And really what he wants at this point now, though, is more damage. He does have to opt for that defensive item simply because Garen provides so much pressure and Vi can do so much. But of course, you can cancel that Vi ultimate with that Hourglass pretty reliably. So he will be able to be a little bit safer in the back lines, albeit with a little bit less damage than he'd like. So you do see Pie in Pie fashion going full damage, not looking to build any tanky stats on this Vi. A walking ultimate, if you will, able to solo anyone if he can finish this Triforce. He does have the Zeal and the Phage so far, so it'll be curious to see what he builds next. He has very limited tanky stats, as I mentioned earlier, but of course, Vi especially does pretty well with that Triforce, having multiple ways to proc that 200% damage increase from Sheen. And they do, despite the fact that they have been winning these team fights, it is kind of in their favor to look for these picks, especially because in a team fight situation, Ate on that Morgana is always going to be able to Black Shield and stop that Vi ultimate. So definitely good for the Nightblue's team to pick up that Morgana, to kind of cancel out this Vi pick, but if you're not in a team fight situation, Morgana isn't going to have the impact you want her to. So of course, Smoothie on Janna, though, is similarly powerful in that Janna has been able to disengage just about every one of these team fights. We do see Fabi and two other members of his team, Golden Glue and Ate, pushing down this mid lane, trying to get as much as possible. Nightblue is going to engage 100% there. Pie immediately dashes out of that ultimate, then ults back in for some reason, not quite clear. Maybe thought he was going to get the follow-up from Smoothie, but Smoothie was not there. All 4 remaining members of the team are going to be in that middle lane trying to deny this push, but you do see Moonway and Nightblue pushing out that bot lane as well. So are they going to split their focus? Are they going to try to engage on this mid lane? This is sort of Nightblue's team saying, you know, you need to make a decision. You have to commit to one of these, and Blem immediately chasing down Nightblue in that situation. Hoping to get that kill. He does have the ultimate available, but Moonway just runs in to get that turret. Blem kind of running back in to try to pick up that kill on Nightblue, but isn't, you know, Nightblue not quite low enough to get that execution from Garen, despite Garen having pretty impressive stats at this point in the game, and his Ignite is, of course, still up. So, good overall decision-making from Nightblue's team, splitting out that tower, you know, forcing the enemy team to make a decision, and unfortunately, Blem on that Garen pick. When he's not in these team fight situations and when the fight hasn't already been initiated, he's quite easy to kite off, and doesn't really have a good way to chase at this point, especially when Janna isn't near him and isn't offering that speed buff. So with any luck, they can counteract that by picking up this 3rd dragon, as it will spawn in just a few minutes here. But until then, Garen's going to be hard-pressed to chase. He did opt for Ninja Tappy, a defensive boot, as opposed to something that might give him a little bit more speed. KT Smurf trying to EQ out of there, or WE out of there, sorry. Nightblue immediately cataclysm to try to deny that, but does, however, get the flash coming out from KT Smurf. So KT Smurf, 1 defensive cooldown burned. That will be pretty helpful for the team as a whole in the next team fight, but may not be the best. You just see Blem and Pie coming in from the side here. This is the engage that they want if they can get it. This is the ult going down on Golden Glue almost immediately. He does have Zhonya's Hourglass cooldown still available. Pie very squishy, getting picked up almost immediately. Moonway running down the front line. Blem changing Moonway, but can't get anything there. Nightblue does not have the ultimate available. It does run into the team. Does pop that random Atoma to try to get the slow. Nightblue, or Golden Glue, missing the ultimate completely, and Ate getting picked up there by Pie over the wall. Nightblue in a tough spot here. Blem and Pie off to the side. Moonway opts to chase. Maybe a bit of an aggressive decision, kind of hard to catch that Garen or that Vi in this specific situation. So overall, a bit of a bloodbath, 2-for-2 exchange. Good on both sides to pick up the kills that they did. You know, both of the main damage dealers dead on the side, on Pie's side, whereas Golden Glue and Ate the picks for for Nightblue's team. So, you know, a little bit of an advantage to Nightblue squad with that they do have more damaging characters available, but Moonway may get caught out here actually. So maybe not so much of an advantage. Moonway will most likely go down. Garen does still have ultimate available, does not still have ultimate available, but doesn't even need it, as the Sunfire Cape plus the Judgment and the damage of his 2 allies will be more than enough to take out Moonway. Moonway does now have that distortion bonus, is starting to build tanky, but I mean, obviously has an absurd amount of armor penetration, which is going to come in handy here, but until he gets that Randuin's Omen, he might not have enough CC to keep up with Zerbic and this Janna. So it'll be interesting to see how they play these team fights. Moonway most likely has to dive into the back line to get the most amount of effectiveness, and Golden Glue, despite, you know, completely missing his ultimate in the last fight, has been doing decent damage, and if, you know, he can land that 3 or 4 person shockwave, may be able to win a team fight in commanding fashion, but it's kind of up in the air at this point. The gold lead is so minimal, 1k, not even 1k, sorry, less than 1k gold lead for the side of QtPie. You know, consistently fighting or picking these fights where they don't exactly have advantage, but they are excellent at forcing these fights. So if they can catch Nightblue squad off guard, they may be able to get something, but it looks like Nightblue's the one looking for the catch here. Smoothie immediately has to flash out. Nightblue not having any way to get back over that wall now that he's committed, does find almost all 5 members. QtPie jumping on the wall in a similar situation to Nightblue. A little bit too aggressive there. KT Smurf in the back line. Looks like he's going to get picked up by Fabi. Golden Glue does use that Zhonya's cooldown to the best of its ability, and Moonway is chasing down Blem here. Blem does have ultimate available, so that if they can get Moonway low, they will be able to win this fight. Smoothie kind of hanging back, doesn't want to die to the Riven pick, does have to use Monsoon to keep Moonway away, but at the same time, Blem now going in 100%, seeing Zerbic there to back him up, does have the ultimate available to kill Moonway, did miscalculate a little bit there. Moonway may be able to escape, does have a lot of mobility options, but Moonway, you know, messing up that jump over the wall is going to be pretty brutal for him, and it looks like Blem is going to pick up that kill. Fabi warding over the wall, seeing if he can deny this dragon from Zerbic. Unlikely. Zerbic just a little bit farther ahead at this point in the game and does so much damage, you know, seeing very similar items, but Zerbic up that Infinity Edge, which is just going to be so huge here. And that is the 3rd dragon for QtPie's squad that is going to be the movement speed bonus, so this is going to come in huge for Garen especially, who wants to just run at you all the time. And good on Blem using this pick as aggressively as he does. He is so tanky at this point that, you know, he may win the 1v1 duel versus Riven, but it will take Riven 10 minutes to kill him, and in that time the team will be able to rotate. So excellent build choice for him. Good pressure in these team fights, and, you know, kind of making up for QtPie's full damage build. QtPie having that Triforce, that Warrior Enchantment, and an extra Brutalizer. So lots of damage from Vi, lots of tankiness from Garen, and of course Zerbic still as far ahead as always. We do see Azir opting to finish the Void Staff over the Hourglass, so more damage from Azir, a little less defensive options. So, but if Azir can stand in that backline and they can knock it down an ideal engage, KT Smurf is going to be able to do so much work. However, Nightblue is immediately going to burn the Cataclysm, is going to catch out Smoothie here. Smoothie will go down. KT Smurf fighting in this pinch is ideal for him, but he does get bound out by Ate. Ate using that Golden Glue using the Shockwave. Golden Glue immediately is on using QtPie Flash E to get the kill. Golden Glue is going to go down, does auto-attack the Scuttle Crab as if to say, screw you, Mr. Krabs. Nightblue is going to EQ out of there, flag and drag to safety. Blem chasing like always. Kind of a crazy team fight there. So many cooldowns blown, so much split-second decision making. Blem still chasing. Not scared of this turret at all, although he does have to be careful. QtPie using the Chilling Smite onto Moonway there. Nightblue in trouble. Not really any option for him. Blem will pick up that kill. Not looking to donate to Zerbic. Zerbic already 7-1-10. Might not need any more, but 7-1 or 7-4-9 coming out from Blem. Blem playing a huge role in these team fights, and KT Smurf as well, doing so much damage. Helped out the team a lot. Despite him going down, he had immense impact there, and pretty much got all of the aggressive cooldowns from Golden Glue and Ate to kill him as fast as they did. So Blem now still very tanky, going in, able to take out Moonway with the help of Zerbic. Zerbic doing so much damage, may be able to take out Fabi as well. Blem totally unafraid to tank that tower. They do have a regular size wave there, but they have one more on the way. They may try to take this turret. They do have advantage here, and of course, meanwhile, KT Smurf in the mid lane, pushing out as well. Azir, of course, has Azir, of course, able to use that Sand Soldier passive to damage turrets directly, but it looks like instead of playing aggressive and going for anything more here, they're happy to leave out with those 2 kills, and now a 4k gold lead for QtPie's squad. That was exactly the fight that QtPie wanted, and so as a result, they have this huge substantial gold lead, and Blem at this point, you know, has been running in this whole game. You see him building so much health. He has, I believe, I can't remember Warmock's build path, but I would say almost it's about 3 giant spells at this point. So an immense amount of health. He has 4k health and regenerates with the buffs to Garen's regeneration passive. He'll pretty much be able to fight every 20 or 30 seconds because of how much health he's going to be able to regenerate. And you do see Golden Glue kind of trying to sneak in and get the blue buff there. Fabi does end up with it, but Blem is going to run in on these characters. Blem taking almost no damage, of course, as they run away. Cutie Pie going to ult in onto the Golden Glue. Golden Glue denies it with the Zanya. Nightblue following up with the EQ combo to keep them locked down, but unfortunately Golden Glue stays invulnerable for just a little bit too long in that situation and goes down as well. So Morgana going down to the Azir. And overall, this is exactly the kind of team fight that Cutie Pie squad wants. They want to chase you down. They want to put Blem right in the front and have him tank as much damage as possible. Zerbic, of course, picking up that kill, doing so much damage on that Grace pick. Does have Last Whisper now. Nightblue as well going down. 6k gold lead, or 4k gold lead into a 7k gold lead, what was originally a gold deficit, and we may see Cutie Pie's team try to end the game here. They will for sure get this inhibitor turret. There are still 4 members down. Moonway, the only player available, and they have a substantial weave here. Blem, additionally, just so tanky, as I mentioned earlier, 4k health. Able to pretty much just go in and spin. Cutie Pie has to play careful here, still squishy as ever, but Moonway not going to be able to do a whole lot to stop this. Zerbic tanking the tower there, but ignoring him for the most part. The immediate ult coming out, Golden Glue flashing into the center of the team, not able to get what he wants. Ade immediately going down, and this looks like it's going to be a win for Cutie Pie's squad. So excellent, excellent play from Cutie Pie's team, and, you know, good decision making, good team fighting, excellent Garen play from Blem, despite my skepticism in the early stages of the game.